I'm Dr. Seth, psychologist, and today I want to talk about something called betrayal trauma. And my hope, if you have experienced this yourself, is that this can be helpful. This can provide some comfort and support, and also maybe some thoughts about how you can move on and get through the experience yourself. And who knows, maybe actually even become a better, stronger person, a wiser person, and that you can use the pain of the betrayal that you experienced. So, to begin, what betrayal trauma usually involves is a trusted relationship where someone violated a boundary, trespassed a boundary that was so critical and basic to you that it causes a sort of shock, a psychological, emotional shock. This is not something that you ever would have imagined happening. And what makes it a trauma or traumatic is that you actually experience significant mental health symptoms as a result. You may have nightmares about it. You may have flashbacks about the betrayal. You may not be able to stop thinking about it. You may find yourself inconsolably crying at times. You may find yourself doing the opposite and actually just sort of emotionally freezing or shutting down. All of these reactions can be possible when someone experiences a betrayal trauma. Now, think about a betrayal trauma, and typically the kinds of relationships that are involved when someone is involved with a betrayal trauma are either a romantic relationship, a loved one, it could be a long term romantic partner, or a husband or a wife. It could be a family member where there was a betrayal trauma. It could be a really close, trusted friend. The common thread is that there was trust in this relationship, that this relationship was looked to as a source of solace and security and consistency. And so, what happens once the betrayal comes to light is you can find yourself in a situation where you feel like everything was a lie. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything was a lie, but this is how it can feel. You can also find yourself questioning yourself, doubting yourself, being critical of yourself. And you know what? Blaming yourself. Why didn't I know? I should have seen. There were warning signs. What I would say to you is, really? Should you have known? Should you have expected that someone that you cared about, someone that you trusted, would hurt you in such a horrific way? Would trespass a boundary in such a crucial and sometimes even cruel way? Should you have seen the signs? Should you have expected that? I would argue that actually, in some ways, it's healthy to not expect that in relationships. The problem is, some people do things for all sorts of reasons and they end up hurting people in incredible, extreme ways. A lot of times they don't even intend to, but they do it. Sometimes people who cause the betrayal of others, they do it out of selfishness. Sometimes they do it out of malice. They can do it for all different reasons. What matters for you is if you have experienced betrayal trauma, somebody has betrayed you in a horrific way, you need to let yourself feel those feelings. You need to let yourself feel the whole confusing mix of feelings. And one of the things that can be very helpful is to go through Kubler-Ross's stages of grief, to actually educate yourself about what the stages of grief are. The stages of grief don't occur in any one predictable order, but most people find that they do actually go through each one of the stages when they are experiencing this kind of betrayal trauma. The five stages of grief are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. There is no specific order because the truth is there is no playbook for grief. People are different, and everyone's experience of grief and the circumstances of the grief and the betrayal are different. So people will find themselves going through the stages in different ways and in different orders. The last stage, acceptance, is, I think, one that is really important to realize that when we get to a stage of acceptance, it's not something, the betrayal, the events, whatever it is we're processing, is not something that we feel strongly emotional about anymore. Once you reach the stage, ultimately, of acceptance, you don't feel incredibly angry. You don't feel incredibly sad. You can observe what happened. You see it for what it is, but you have a certain detachment from it because you have processed through all the other different stages so much of the emotional content. The goal is ultimately to get to a stage of acceptance because when you experience betrayal trauma, there's nothing that you can do to change it. It's done. While it would be completely natural to want to try to control it, to go back and replay the tape, if only you could undo it, everything would be so much better. There's no going back. It is what it is. It happened. The only solace that you can have is that you have control and power over how you react, over how you put one foot in front of the other as a result of these. And so, my point is let yourself go through and feel the different feelings of these grief stages. Let yourself feel the anger. Now, what matters is how you express the anger. So, just because you feel angry doesn't give permission to just act out on it, to yell and scream and do hurtful things in response, to do dangerous things. No, that is not a healthy expression of anger. But feeling the anger, and in fact, writing about it in a journal, just writing, even in scratch paper, getting it out, writing about your angry feelings, why you feel angry, how you felt betrayed, and how you felt surprised, and why it's not fair, getting connected with that anger is really helpful. Letting yourself feel the sadness, letting yourself feel the disappointment is critical, and writing about it too can be incredibly helpful. Talking about this issue with really trusted friends can be an incredibly helpful thing, as well as, of course, talking to a therapist. Some people find that actually seeking out a mental health professional to deal with something that's so traumatic can be really important and helpful. And then also, just a note to be on the lookout for bargaining. Bargaining, that stage where you find yourself trying to do things to maybe undo it, or maybe if I do this, maybe it will take the pain away a little less. Maybe if I try to fight the reality by doing this, or if I try to overcompensate for what happened by doing that. That's really a version of bargaining, which is again a version of not accepting the reality. Let yourself feel the feelings of those stages. But before you find yourself indulging those feelings in unhealthy ways, then you shift and say, okay, what do I ultimately need to do now after I let myself feel some of these feelings today? Do I need to do some dishes in the sink? Do I need to do some work? Do I need to do some cleaning? What can I do that's productive? So do this mix of letting yourself feel the feelings and also continuing to try to put one foot in front of the other and meet the daily requirements of your daily life. This is a saying, what I would call self talk, that you can repeat to yourself, which is, today I will do what's required of me. I will do what's required of me today. If you have kids, for example, you will meet the requirements of parenting because that's your responsibility, and it also gives you a purpose. If you have work related demands, you can meet those demands. You can say to yourself, I will do what's required of me. Why? Because not doing any of these things, it won't remove or delete the betrayal that happened. So, again, a mix of let yourself feel the feelings and then also say, okay, and now that I have let myself feel some of those feelings today, now I will also put one foot in front of the other and do what is required of me. I will do a mix of feeling and a mix of taking healthy action. Okay. And then what you'll find is day after day, you start to accumulate a little bit more confidence. You sort of act your way into right thinking. And over time, the intensity of some of these feelings will get a little bit better. Social support is going to be key during this experience. The research is overwhelming that social support is helpful not just for one's overall mental wellness, for one's overall physical wellness, but especially when you are dealing with grief or coping with an incredibly horrific life experience. So, social support, not just phone calls or lunches or dinners with friends or other trusted family members, but also reaching out to organizations. For example, if you're somebody who goes to church or religious activities, make more of an effort to think about whether that would be good for you now. Other social organizations that you maybe belong to or that you could join to feel more a part of a community and also give you something productive and healthy to focus on. These are some of the basic reminders that can be really helpful if you have experienced betrayal trauma. But overall, the number one point that I want to leave you with today is that you can be okay. You can be okay. When you are in the midst of dealing with emotional betrayal trauma, you can feel like you can't go on anymore. It can feel like there's a dark cloud over you and that life will never, ever be the same. But one thing to remember is that there are all sorts of people in this world who get through all sorts of horrific things: the death of children, the death of family members, really tragic accidents. And people find a way to keep going. They find a way to turn to people who are good for them, who can help sustain them and give them social support. They reconnect with a purpose and meaning in life. They accept that they cannot control the behavior of other people. But what they can always do is decide how much hope that they make the choice to hang on to, and how productive and helpful and positive a contribution they make the choice to try to do today, despite what happened. All right. I sure hope this has been helpful. And I also hope that you may find some other videos helpful here on my YouTube channel, Dr. Seth Psychologist, as you cope with this. My heart is with you.